You're watching Dante's Boxing Nation.
Dontaesboxingnation, what's going on, guys? You know, first things first, I want to let you guys know today was a very, very busy day for me. My son, he fought today, and so I was pretty much gone the whole day. I didn't get to see any of the fights. I just got done watching the Anthony Joshua Dillian Whyte fight. I still got to watch all the other fights. But anyway, my son, he came up short. It was a very, very, very close fight. Could have went either way. You know, congratulations to the other kid. My son hadn't fought since the Junior Golden Gloves, which was 6 months ago. And he ended up injuring himself in that tournament. So he had to take off 2 months to heal. So, you know, once again, it's like resetting all over again. So now we're trying to be active. He has another fight. He's possibly going to be fighting next weekend. And I want to try to keep him fighting at least once a month. You know, we may start traveling around so he can be more active, because within the last 2 years, you know, we've been very inactive compared to before. You know, he won the National Golden Gloves and you know, he also won some other national tournaments about 2 years ago. That's when he was active. That's when he was fighting like almost every month. So we haven't been fighting. We've been fighting like a couple times a year. Matter of fact, he didn't even fight last year. So anyway, with that out the way, let's talk about Anthony Joshua versus Dillian Whyte. I want to let you guys know this was really the only fight that I was looking forward to this weekend. I should say this was the main fight. This was the fight that I felt was the main event of the weekend, because there's so much going on in the heavyweight division right now. We just seen Tyson Fury pull off an upset and defeat Vladimir Klitschko, the very long reigning heavyweight champion. And tonight we seen one of the best heavyweight prospects, I guess I can say legitimate contender now, that knocked out an undefeated fighter that beat him in the amateurs. Let me talk about fighters being tested to the limit. You know, when you see an undefeated fighter and he's never been tested mentally, he's never been tested physically, right? We could easily look at his skills and try to project how far he can go. You know, it's like gambling. Some of us are going to be right, some of us are going to be wrong, right? Like when it came to someone like a Floyd Mayweather, I knew when Floyd only had 6 fights that he was going to be possibly pound for pound the best fighter in the world. I knew he was going to replace people like Roy Jones Jr. At least that's what I believe. Even way before he was tested. But he still had to prove himself and get past that major test just to confirm what I had already believed. And Floyd Mayweather had passed that test with fighters like Janelle Hernandez, the lineal champion, Angel Manfredi, the #1 contender, and people like fighters, I should say, like Diego Corrales. Now, with that all being said, I want to compare it to what I just seen with Anthony Joshua tonight. Now, I've been real high on Anthony Joshua, but like I was just telling you guys, he had not been tested yet. And after only 14 fights, we see Anthony Joshua get in the ring with a guy that can test him physically and mentally. A guy that has the confidence of an undefeated fighter, has pretty much the same type of power that Anthony Joshua has pretty much the same type of resistance that Anthony Joshua has, right? And Anthony Joshua beats this type of opponent. You know, when it comes to fighters like Gennady Golovkin, I went out and I interviewed a whole bunch of different fighters. And it's interesting because All the fighters that I interviewed, from Teddy Atlas to Matt Karloff to Terrence Crawford to Nate Campbell, all of these guys said the same thing. Sure, he's good, but we don't know how good he is until he fights somebody. We don't know how good he is until he's in there with someone who's going to fight back, right? Same thing applies for Anthony Joshua. We knew he looked good knocking out a certain level of opposition, but we didn't know how good he was until we seen somebody in there with confidence who was going to fight back. We seen that tonight. So now I have a much better gauge of what I think about Anthony Joshua, comparing him to the best heavyweights in the division right now. Let's talk about how the fight went down. So basically, Anthony Joshua, he comes out, first round, he immediately rocks Dillian Whyte. He hurts him a couple times in the first round, and it's starting to look like it's going to be another typical early stoppage by Anthony Joshua. But once again, like I was telling you guys before, he's in there with a different type of animal, because this guy showed resistance, right? He showed that he wanted this just as bad as Anthony Joshua wanted this fight. So Whyte, he weathers the storm. And by the second round, Dillian Whyte is finding his groove. Then he surprises Anthony Joshua with, I believe it was a check hook. He surprised Anthony Joshua. Anthony was coming in and ran right into a check hook. And for the first time, we got to see Anthony Joshua dealing with adversity. Now he's hurt. Once again, he's in the ring with a guy who wants to win just as bad as he does, right? He's not in the ring with a guy who's already been knocked out before, already lost a couple times. He's in there with a confident, undefeated fighter. So Anthony Joshua gets rocked, right? He staggers a little bit. Dillian Whyte jumps on him, rallies a little bit. Next thing you know, Anthony Joshua is smiling. And he's like, that wasn't too bad. I'm okay, right? And he gathers himself pretty quickly, which was impressive. Once again, going back to, this is why we need to see these fighters fight someone who is going to fight back, right? We haven't seen this type of stuff when it comes to like a Gennady Golovkin. Fighting against a guy undefeated, has the same type of confidence, the same type of resistance, the same type of power. Anthony Joshua was in the ring with a guy like that tonight. So he gets past the second round. Once again, he gathers himself and he regains control of the fight. We might as well go ahead and just fast forward to the last round, at least the last round in this fight, which was the 7th round. So in the 7th round, it's pretty ironic because the same punch that hurt Anthony Joshua in the second round pretty much was the beginning of the end for Dillian Whyte in the 7th round. It was a check hook, I believe. Staggered Dillian Whyte real bad. From that point, it was just like Danny Jacobs. After Danny Jacobs had already staggered Peter Quillen with the right hand, it was on some Mortal Kombat shit where from that point on, it was just on some, finish him type shit because they're out of it, they're dazed, and they're ready to go. So that's exactly what Anthony Joshua, he did. He starts catching Dillian Whyte with bombs, and eventually he catches him with a perfect uppercut, and Anthony Joshua is damn near asleep, hanging on the ropes. Done deal. So Anthony Joshua, once again, knocks out Dillian Whyte in the 7th round. Now I have to criticize Anthony Joshua just a little bit. Like I told you guys, when a fighter is tested for the very first time, we learn a lot more about that fighter. And I believe I learned a lot about Joshua tonight. Now, the one thing I learned is he definitely has heart. He definitely has the desire to go through fire and try to win. But at the same time, there were some things that kind of raised my eyebrows a little bit that I was noticing. The first thing I noticed is Anthony Joshua, he looks a little stiff. He was walking around the ring like he was walking in quicksand. Very flat-footed. I just wouldn't expect a guy 6'6", 6'7" to be so flat-footed and fighting more like Joe Frazier than a Lennox Lewis, since he's so tall. You know, it's funny because when you look at his stance and when you look at his build, I'll tell you who he looks just like. He looks just like Frank Bruno in the ring. That's how he looks. The way he holds his guard up, how he's all big and muscular like that. He looked like Frank Bruno. Now, I'm not trying to say that he's the next Frank Bruno. I'm just saying that's how he looks in the ring. You know, he looks very stiff. He doesn't look like he's really taking advantage of the height and the reach that he has. I understand he likes to go on the inside. He likes to get the knockout. But the way I seen him fight after he got hurt, we see more of the human side of Anthony Joshua. Because once again, he was in there with a guy that was fighting back, right? So I was thinking at first he had a major edge over fighters like Deontay Wilder because his skill set looked so impeccable before this fight. But I have to be honest, now after what I've seen, that's a very competitive fight. That's a very competitive fight. I could see Deontay Wilder winning that fight. You know, I could even see Anthony Joshua winning that fight. But I tell you one thing right now, after what I've seen tonight, it seems like Deontay Wilder, with that long ass right hand that he has, and him using foot movement, and you have Anthony Joshua, who seems to be a little slow on his feet, he would give Deontay Wilder a very good chance of beating him and possibly knocking him out. That's what I believe. I even believe Anthony Joshua, he gives Tyson Fury a chance of beating him. Because Anthony Joshua or Tyson Fury is another fighter who is light on his feet, right? Tyson Fury, he's like, 6'9", but he could float like Muhammad Ali in the ring. And we know foot movement gives slow-footed fighters problems. So the heavyweight division is live right now, right? And it's up in the air. It's up in the air for any one of these heavyweights to end up on top and claim the number one spot and be considered the king. You know, after Tyson Fury beat Vladimir Klitschko because the fight wasn't that entertaining, it wasn't that explosive, and you know, the punch output was so low, a lot of people, they automatically crowned Deontay Wilder as the best heavyweight because a lot of people assumed that Deontay Wilder would beat both Klitschko and Tyson Fury, at least that version of them that we seen when they fought against each other, right? Now, once again, you have Anthony Joshua showing just, you know, a couple holes in his game. I can't wait to see these fights, man. I can't wait to see all these guys fight each other and see who is going to end up on top, being the king of the heavyweight division. You have a lot of other really good heavyweights in the mix right now that haven't really stepped up and really been tested the way Anthony Joshua was tonight. You have fighters like Andy Ruiz, who looks like one of the most talented heavyweights in the division coming up. You have Joseph Parker, who I'm really high on. You have Charles Martin, another guy that I'm really high on. Matter of fact, he was supposed to fight against Dominic Brazil tonight, but he pulled out because they were gonna, I guess he's in position now to fight for that vacant IBF title that they stripped Tyson Fury of against, I believe it'll be against Glasgow. That'll be another great fight. But once again, these fighters have to be tested. A lot of these fighters do look very impressive when they're fighting a certain level of opposition, right? I mean, I remember, it's crazy because I remember Shannon Briggs, man. Shannon Briggs, there was a time when Shannon Briggs, he looked like he was going to be one of the greatest heavyweights of all time. I mean, the dude was talented. When Shannon Briggs was undefeated, he was like one of those heavyweights that fought like a middleweight or a welterweight. He was just so slick. And then he had the height to go with the slickness. He had the, he was muscular, he was strong, and he had the skill to go with the strength, right? He wasn't just a fighter relying on his power. Now, of course, I'm exaggerating when I say he looked like he was going to be one of the greatest of all time, Shannon Briggs. The point I'm making is he looked very promising, right? You can pretty much say he looked more promising than Anthony Joshua. He was that athletic. But then he stepped up in competition. He fought someone who was going to actually fight back, and he ended up getting, I think he got knocked out for the first time. Same thing with Audley Harrison, another extremely talented heavyweight, gold medalist, 6'7", 6'6", a southpaw. He was in there fighting like Floyd Mayweather and knocking guys out because, of course, he was a heavyweight. Steps up in competition, and we ain't even talking about super heavy competition, but just steps up, he gets knocked out. So you never really know about these fighters until they fight someone who's going to fight back. That's when you can start to say, oh, this guy is on another level. Oh, this guy is this and he's that. Speaking of power, fighters that are so used to overwhelming fighters with their power, you get to find out what they're made of when they're in the ring with a guy who can match their power. Not just match their power, but just like I've been saying throughout this whole video, can match their confidence and their skill set. Fighter doesn't have to be just as skilled as that fighter. He doesn't have to have an amateur pedigree just as good as that fighter. It just has to be similar, right? It has to be similar. So congratulations to Anthony Joshua. He passed this test. He had a little bit of a scare, but he passed it. I don't think a Deontay Wilder fight is going to be that easy compared to Dillian Whyte. I mean, Dillian Whyte wasn't super easy, but let's face it, Anthony Joshua, he won every round except for like one. But I think a fighter like Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury, those type of opponents are going to be much more difficult. Even a Joseph Parker, another guy who uses a little bit of foot movement in the ring, but at the same time, those guys, like once again, they have not been tested yet. They haven't been tested yet. So 2016 should be a very interesting year for the heavyweight division. That's all I got, guys. I'm on to the next one. And by the way, I'll be dropping some more videos tomorrow. It's extremely late right now. I will usually cover a lot more of the fights that took place tonight, but I'll go ahead and upload some stuff on those fights tomorrow. All right, guys, take care.